Exposed. The spine-chilling secrets of a haunted gas station in Ohio with 7 cursed rules. Jake sat behind the counter of the old gas station, feeling the cool, musty air seep deep into his bones. It was just another night in rural Ohio, but whispers of the past wrapped around him like a suffocating fog. The townsfolk had shared chilling tales, each story more haunting than the last. 2 young girls had vanished decades ago, their faces frozen in time. Their absence was palpable, echoing through the gas station's cracked walls. The flickering neon sign outside seemed to scream warnings to anyone who dared to draw near. He could still hear the locals' hushed voices. "Don't go near that gas station after dark," they'd say, eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. Each tale sent chills rippling down his spine, yet he brushed them off as mere rumors. As he settled into the monotony of the night, he stumbled upon a dusty old notebook tucked away beneath a loose floorboard. Its cover was worn, the pages yellowed and smudged with time. Scrawled in frantic ink were the words 7 cursed rules. It felt ridiculous, like a horror movie cliché, but as he skimmed the text, unease prickled the back of his neck. The first rule was ominous. Never let the phones go silent. He glanced at the dead phones on the wall and felt a jolt of panic. The radio crackled to life, its static thickening the air. He shifted uncomfortably as whispers danced through the speakers, twisting and bending like the shadows cast by the flickering overhead lights. Something felt off, like he was being watched. He turned to his coworker, a figure of casual indifference, who leaned against the wall, eyes narrowed with a focus that made Jake's heart race. There was an intensity there, something far beyond a typical shift worker-esque vibe. With every passing minute, he became hyper-aware of the rules he had already broken, the tension coiling tighter within him. The pale glow of the station's light flickered, throwing grotesque shadows onto the wall. Jake felt a cold sweat trickle down his back. Before he could catch his breath, the door creaked open. A figure stepped in, cloaked in darkness. Jake's heart plummeted. The stranger's presence was overwhelming, their eyes drilling straight into Jake's soul. "Help me," the figure hissed, voice rough like gravel. Jake's mind raced. This stranger knew things about him, things he had never shared, things he wanted to keep buried. Panic surged. He remembered the cursed rules. Stay calm. He forced himself to breathe, but the anxiety crept in like a silent fog. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." His heart thudded violently against his ribcage as he weighed his choices. Should he adhere to the cursed instructions or confront the darkness before him? Jake felt the air grow thin, weighted by the secrets hidden within the shadows. The line between the living and the dead blurred, and dread pooled in the pit of his stomach. Were the spirits binding him to this cursed station, or did they weave deeper into the fabric of the town itself? With breath held, Jake faced the imposing figure, the whispering shadows twisting around them. A question loomed in his mind. A terrifying thought: could he escape the haunting truth buried in the gas station, or would he join the ranks of those who had come before him? Jake's breath hitched as he stared at the figure, an unsettling dread gnawing at his insides. The room grew colder, each passing second stretching into eternity. He could see the outline of the stranger more clearly now, a gaunt silhouette framed by the dim light, their features hidden in shadow but the desperation evident in the way they swayed, as if the weight of their existence threatened to collapse under the strain. "Please, you have to help me." The voice rasped again, stronger now, as if that single plea was the lifeline tethering them both to reality. Before he could respond, a sudden crash jolted him from his frozen state. The radio screeched, drowning out the whispered words clinging to the air. Static buzzed urgently, morphing into echoes of laughter that cut through the night like knives. Goosebumps raised on his arms, and he instinctively took a step back. The coworker he had almost forgotten about began to twitch, his eyes rolling back in his head for a terrifying moment before they locked onto Jake with a manic gleam. "Jake!" the coworker shouted, voice distorted and hollow. "Don't listen to it." Panic ripped through him. The urgency of his coworker's warning battled with the anguished plea from the stranger. Which of them was truly in danger? The shadows seemed to thicken, swirling around the gas station's corners, taunting him with memories of the girls who had disappeared, whispering their names like an incantation. "What do you want?" Jake croaked, his voice barely above a whisper, a mix of fear and resolve as he gazed into the stranger's eyes. They glistened, wide and haunted, and for a moment he felt the weight of infinite darkness pressing down on him, suffocating and relentless. "They took them," the figure breathed, "and now they want you. You must find them before it's too late." A sharp wind rushed through the gas station, and the neon sign outside flickered violently, casting crazed rays of color that illuminated the growing distress around him. The smell of decay seeped into the air, mixing with the stale scent of oil and rubber, sending Jake's stomach churning. I don't know how," he gasped, squeezing his eyes shut against the rising sickness. In that instant, he remembered the notebook, the cursed rules. The first rule echoed in his mind like a mantra, and as if awakened by his thoughts, the telephone suddenly came to life with a jarring ring. The sound pierced through the thick atmosphere, a cruel reminder of the silence he had allowed to seep in. Jake opened his eyes, and the stranger was closer now, mere inches away, their breath heavy with desperation. "You have to listen," they insisted, reaching toward him, fingers clawing through the air, an urgency that felt like a lifeline and a trap all at once. His pulse raced as he turned his head, directing his eyes to the phone. Could the cursed rules hold the key? The sickening thought flayed open in his mind. What if making a call unleashed more darkness? "Jake, don't!" his coworker cried out again, shaking the wall as if trying to wrench reality back into place. Then a deafening crash arrived from the back of the station. Something had hit the back door. Something forceful, something hungry. Jake staggered back, indecision clawing at his psyche. The walls seemed to close in, air thinning and flickering lights revealing fleeting shapes that flickered and flailed like ghosts, beckoning him toward a reckoning he was not ready to face. "Help me or you may never leave," the stranger implored, voice breaking, as the chilling grip of something ancient, cold, and predatory pulsed around them. Heart racing, he took a breath to make a choice as chaos began to unfurl. Yet another shadow flickered in the near distance and whispered his name. What fate awaited him once he reached for the phone? What price must he pay for the truth behind those cursed rules? Jake's heart thundered in his chest as he glanced at the phone, its receiver beckoning like a portal to another world, one filled with unimaginable horrors and buried truths. The tension thickened in the cramped space as the figure swayed closer, an embodiment of desperation cloaked in shadows. "Choice," the stranger murmured, their voice fragile, like glass on the brink of shattering. "It's what they thrive on. Your fear will feed them." His instincts screamed at him to run, to tear himself away from the otherworldly presence that seemed to sap the very warmth from his bones. The faint echo of crashing reverberated from the back, a reminder that danger loomed just beyond the thin, rusted door. With a deep breath, he took a half-step toward the phone. "Jake, please!" His coworker's voice broke through the haze, slicing the air with sharp urgency. "Don't do it. It's a trap." Jake's eyes darted between the coworker and the stranger. The figure's face twisted into a mask of tortured anguish, eyes glimmering with what looked like dark knowledge. "You'll suffer worse if you don't," they gasped, their fingers trembling as they clawed at the air between them, like a drowning person grasping at straws. He hesitated, time stretching thin and taut around him, the weight of the world settling on his shoulders. The static from the radio burbled ominously, voices stealing through like venomous whispers. "Help the lost or be lost," they taunted, a cacophony of distorted giggles rising and falling with the rhythm of his racing heart. "Make a choice," the stranger urged, desperation leaking into every syllable. "They need you, I need you, you need this." He sensed the door shudder as more weight crashed against it, the sound of violent symphony punctuated by the distant screams of the past. Memories flashed before him, the faces of the missing girls, their laughter. So alive, now cloaked in haunting silence. "I can't do this," Jake choked out, stepping back, his mind spiraling. "I don't know who to believe." "Believe in the truth." The stranger reached out, fingers brushing against his trembling hand, and it felt like ice. A jolt shot up his arm, electricity mingling with dread. "They're out there, your friends, your family trapped." A deafening bang resounded, splintering through his uncertainty. The door was buckling now, a furious force trying to break in. Shadows flickered in and out, the faint outlines of those who had lost their way, their cries mingling with the clamor. The tension twisted and writhed around him, an oppressive force snaking into his chest. "Jake, don't!" The warning came too late. With no logical sense left, panic ignited his final resolve. His hand shot towards the phone. The receiver parted from the rest easily, his fingers curling around the cool plastic. Was this going to save them or condemn him to the same fate as all the others? He pressed it to his ear, breath escaping in shuddering gasps. "Hello?" he croaked, voice high and strained. Nothing but chilling silence responded. Then a whisper so close it seeped into his mind, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. "Find them, find the truth." The lights flickered violently, a prelude to calamity. Shadows crowded around him now, alive with dark intent, hungry for more. The room seemed to cave inwards, the walls pulsing, alive, as if the gas station itself had awakened. Jake's pulse raced as he felt a pull deeper into darkness, a voice echoing help, help. Then it hit him like a freight train. Cold realization mixed with raw terror. The calls they had urged him to make. Who were they really? A sickly sweet smell of decay filled his nostrils, overpowering, disorienting. His vision blurred, and he could feel the world tilting, shadows closing in like the jaws of something ancient and unyielding. Just as he began to scream, the echo of that chilling voice rose above the chaos. "The rules don't end here. You'll pay for every choice." The ground shook beneath him, and darkness swelled like a tidal wave, dragging him down. What had he unleashed with that single call? In that moment, as everything spiraled out of control, he began to realize there was more at stake than he had ever envisioned. What would he encounter next in the suffocating void of emptiness surrounding him? What truths remained hidden in the dark corners of the gas station? Jake plunged into darkness, suspended in an endless void. Time collapsed into itself, twisting, looping, contorting his understanding of space. Panic flooded his veins as he felt himself being pulled, a torrent of malevolent energy dragging him deeper into blackness. The smell of decay grew stronger, a fetid reminder of secrets long buried. "Help," the whisper echoed, now sharper, more insistent. A fragment of clarity surged through him, a flicker of hope in the suffocating black. Could he still find a way out? He forced his limbs to move, clawing through the shadows, each movement more frantic than the last. The echo of footsteps vibrated through him, rhythmic and relentless. It came from all directions, closing in, a thrumming heartbeat of terror that synchronized with his own racing pulse. "Jake! Jake! Can you hear me?" The sound pushed through the haze, his coworker's voice piercing the gloom, a lifeline amidst despair. "You have to remember the rules. You can't let them win." "What rules?" The shadows rippled in response, swirling like restless spirits. He struggled to recall the chatter that had plagued the gas station, strange warnings drenched in foreboding. But before he could piece it together, a sudden flash illuminated the vastness. Faces, so many faces swirled around him. Their wide eyes reflected pure agony. Girls, laughing at first, morphed into wails of despair, their figures flickering like dying flames. Dark tendrils writhed at the edges, pooling towards them with voracious intent. "Help us!" they cried in unison, voices blending into a haunting symphony of anguish. It sliced through the darkness, cutting him deeper, forcing him to confront a truth he wasn't ready for. "No, no," Jake gasped, his throat tightening. "I won't let you take me." Yet, as he screamed, the whispers grew louder, chilling, insidious. Every choice, the very air thickened. alive with malice, feeding off his fear. Desperately seeking escape, he focused on the phone, the conduit to answers he truly needed. He had reached for it, summoned it, and now was caught in its sinister pull. What had he awakened? As if answering his silent question, a searing light blazed through the blackness. The gas station flickered to life, the familiar ambience of flickering neon signs and dusty shelves enveloping him. But it wasn't the same. The air buzzed with energy, dark and foreboding. He stumbled backward, the weight of the space suffocating him. All around, the shadows danced, taunting him like an ancient ritual, their laughter echoing in cold, debilitating waves. Each figure writhed, caught in a loop of despair, purposefully reaching out with invisible hands to drag him down with them. "Jake, remember the rules. There are 7. His coworker's voice persisted, echoing with growing urgency. "Follow them and you might survive this. Don't follow, and you'll become one of them forever." 7 rules? Panic punched through him, blood roaring in his ears. The rules danced just beyond memory, teasing him like a mirage. A choice that's what they thrive on. The words resonated, a sickening mantra. But each choice he made so far only fueled the darkness. What if there was no escape? What if every wrong move led him closer to his end? The relentless laughter warped into a cacophony, drowning him in despair. Frantically, the last fragments of hope fizzled out, leaving behind only a haunting question. What does it cost to know the truth? Just as despair gripped his heart, an unexpected shimmer of clarity broke through. Could he summon the courage to confront what lay ahead? Or had he reached the point of no return? The ground beneath him began to tremble once more as a dark figure loomed at the edge of his vision. It seemed the game was only just beginning. What horrors would meet him next? What twisted truths awaited him in a world dictated by shadows and whispers? Would he uncover the mysteries of the gas station? Or would he become another lost soul, swallowed whole by the darkness? Jake staggered, the shadows inches from his face, clawing to pull him into their suffocating embrace. He felt a raw panic rising within him, and with every shaky breath, the weight of despair pressed harder on his chest. The dark figure ahead pulsed like a heartbeat, each throb resonating with a dreadful certainty. "Jake," his coworker's voice sliced through the chaos. "You need to find the first rule. It's all connected." An odd flicker flashed his memory, a glimpse of a cardboard sign taped haphazardly behind the counter. Did it mention rules? Yes, a set of rules for the gas station. But what were they? A desperate spark ignited inside him. He stumbled forward, drawn by the familiar dread that clawed at his legs. "Run, run." A chorus of whispers surged in the air, angry and desperate. "They can sense your fear. Choose wisely." Fighting against the surging darkness, he lurched toward a faint glow near the counter. The oppressive atmosphere thickened, swirling around him, warping his vision. The gas station blinked like an ancient film reel, flickering between the present and the ghostly past. He was not alone. The remnants of souls lost within these walls were watching him, hungry for salvation or revenge. His heart hammered louder, echoing in his ears as he reached the register. The familiar sight sent chills racing through him. Behind it, a tattered paper hung, nearly forgotten, a remnant of a simpler time. "The rules?" Jake whispered, desperately scanning the words scrawled hastily on its surface. "Rule 1. Never ignore the signs." What signs? He glanced around, pulse quickening. Shadows flicked at the corners of his eyes. He could almost hear them laughing, mocking his frantic search. "Jake, look." The urgency in his coworker's voice anchored him for a moment. "The next rule. Find it before what?" He could feel the darkness coiling tighter around his limbs. With a sudden burst of courage, he turned his gaze back to the flickering lights. They formed shapes, more faces, more suffering, mouths open in silent screams. Chains rattled in the depths, reminding him of all the interactions he had at the gas station with those who never quite left. "Run, Jake." The weight of agony pressed heavily against him as he lunged toward a wall of empty shelves. He was searching through the shadows, fingers trembling over the cold metal. Help us. You have to remember. They thrive on despair and choices. Don't be the next victim. The cries filled the air, tugging at the edge of his sanity. Panic surged as he ducked lower, feeling the crushing force of shadows pull closer. And there, beneath a fallen box, his fingers brushed against something. A small, crumpled paper glimmered faintly in the dark. The second rule was revealed, etched in a child's handwriting. Rule 2. Always turn back when you hear the laughter. Laughter? Tension snapped through him like a brittle twig. The darkness shifted, a shuddering presence lurking behind him. As he pulled the paper up, shrill laughter erupted all around him. It was a cacophony of glee and malice, seeping into his skin. Turn around, Jake. They come for you. He spun, heart racing, eyes darting. Shadows lunged forward, faces warped with indistinct fury. The electric pulse of the gas station trembled beneath his feet, and everything felt dangerously close to unraveling. What is Rule 3? He murmured to himself, bracing for the worst. But before he could gather himself, the walls whispered, the shadows danced, and the laughter deepened into something vicious. The ground shook violently, and the darkness shifted again, coiling to reveal a path that twisted into a deeper pit beneath the gas station's floor. Jake stood at a crossroads, choices splitting before him like jagged glass. To choose one path was to abandon the light for the unknown and risk becoming another lost soul. What lay ahead? Would he have the strength to face the horrors to come? Or was he already too late? Just as the laughter reached a fever pitch, the ground beneath him cracked open, revealing an even darker abyss. Would he take the plunge? Or was he destined to remain caught in this web of despair? The ground quaked, and an anguished wail erupted from the depths of the newly revealed abyss. Jake hesitated at the edge, sweat dripping down his brow. Shadows licked at his feet, urging him forward into the blackness. A part of him longed to jump in, to escape the relentless terror of the gas station. But he couldn't lose himself. Not yet. Jake, you need to decide. His coworker's voice was almost drowned out by the relentless laughter echoing through the gas station. All around him, the air tightened, thickening with despair and fear. The walls pulsed, as though the very building hungered for his next move. The two rules he had discovered twisted in his mind like barbed wire. First rule, never ignore the signs. Second, always turn back when you hear the laughter. But what option did he have left? The shadows around him whispered secrets in sibilant tones. Choices danced between light and dark, tempting him with promises of release. Find the next rule. The urgency became a mantra, echoing in his head. He forced himself to turn away from the abyss, searching for anything he might have missed. Needles of panic pricked at him. Were there more signs? More rules hidden in the recesses of this cursed place? He stumbled backwards, desperate for clarity. As he moved away from the edge, the laughter morphed into shrieks, each note a dagger to his spine. Look for what they don't want you to see. The shadows deepened. A glimmer caught his eye. On the floor, half buried under a layer of dust and grime, lay another piece of paper. Jake lunged for it, heart pounding. He had to know. His fingers grasped the crumpled sheet and unfolded it. This one was stained, a dark smear soaking through the cracked surface. Rule 3. Don't trust the darkness. His breath hitched. Don't trust the darkness? It was the very thing surrounding him, the force terrorizing his spirit. How could he possibly navigate this hell if he couldn't trust his own senses? Behind him, the walls whispered, voices mingling with the darkness. He must choose, or become forgotten. The growing cacophony turned frantic. Had he already lost his way? Suddenly, air rushed in like a storm, extinguishing the stagnant feeling. The laughter intensified a chorus of malicious glee. Jake spun around, desperate eyes scanning the gas station that now seemed alive with malicious intent. The shelves were vibrating, objects rattling as if held by invisible hands. Turn back, a voice screeched. You don't belong here. In an instant, a surge of energy pulled him towards the darkness once more. He felt invisible tendrils grasping at him, threatening to drag him down. He fought against it, instincts screaming to run. But where? Just then, an old rusted lantern flickered on the wall, casting an eerie glow that flickered like hope. The flames illuminated a hand-painted sign above it, one he hadn't seen before. Only the brave can walk where shadows loom. Brave? In a place where laughter meant doom? Jake didn't know how much longer he could wrestle with his own fear. No more running, he gasped, feeling a surge of defiance. And just as resolve built within him, the ground cracked wider. Ghoulish hands reached up, grasping for him, faces twisted in agony. The roar of despair filled his ears, drowning out his thoughts. He could see fear mirrored in their faces, stories unfinished and lives robbed. What if he couldn't escape? What if he was meant to join them? The laughter rose again, a crescendo of sorrow and malice. He needed to act. He could choose the abyss, or he could brave forward into the light. But what awaited him on either side? Jake stood only a moment longer at the precipice before preparing to leap. And then he heard it again, the laughter. This time it morphed into whispers, no longer sing-song but mocking savage. What if the next rule is more than just a warning? Suddenly, a cold wave crashed over him, making the choice seem even direr than before. As he took a deep breath, towing the line between light and dark, he felt the desperate need to know what lay ahead. Uncertainty gripped him, blending with the very shadows he tried to escape. Would he brace the darkness? Or was salvation hidden just beyond his reach? The shadows swelled hungrily, and Jake realized he was no longer alone. Figures clung to the perimeter, their eyes gleaming with an insatiable thirst for despair. What awaited him next? Would he uncover the true nature of the rules before they claimed him? The air thickened with a sinister weight, and as laughter crescendoed into rage, he felt himself teetering on the brink once more. What if this was only the beginning? Jake's heart raced, pounding like a war drum in his chest. Shadows coiled around him, tightening their grip, as the ghosts of despair reached out for him. He sensed their anguish, their stories woven into the very fabric of this haunted space. It was now or never. Either he plunged into the terrible abyss, or he confronted the lurking unknown in the gas station. He made a choice. With a defiant step away from the edge, he turned toward the flickering light of the lantern, its flame dancing like a beacon of hope amidst the shadows. The walls shuddered, vibrating with a low moan, as Jake approached. The air felt viscous, clinging to his skin like a suffocating shroud. "Keep moving," he muttered under his breath, urging himself onward. The laughter escalated, each note grating against his sanity. He had to silence it. He had to find the source. As he neared the lantern, he noticed the hand-painted sign seemed to pulsate, almost alive. The words, "Only the brave can walk where shadows loom," now felt like an accusation. What did bravery look like when terror gripped your heart? In the corner of the gas station, a door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. A chill clawed at his spine. This was a decision he had to make. He glanced back at the abyss, feeling the tug of unseen hands below. Joining them seemed easier than confronting whatever awaited him on the stairs. "Don't trust the darkness," he whispered, recalling the words from the third rule. Was this what they meant? Or was this merely another trap set by the gas station itself? Taking a breath, he descended the stairs, the wood groaning under his weight. Each step felt like an act of treachery against his instincts, which screamed for him to turn back. As he reached the bottom, he was met with a corridor illuminated by sporadic, flickering lights. The walls were damp, exuding a sinister odor that made his stomach churn. With every step, ghostly whispers enveloped him. He has here. He has come to listen. He must uncover the truth. The words twisted around him, pulling at his resolve. Sweat dripped down his back, mingling with the chill that surrounded him. Suddenly, he froze. A shape appeared in the distance, distinct yet indistinct, flickering like the lights above. Was it a person, or something worse? As he strained his eyes, the figure shifted, revealing a face partially in shadow yet oddly familiar. It was a face he had hoped to never see again, his best friend, Kyle, who had vanished months prior. Guilt sliced through his veins. "Kyle?" Jake's voice trembled, ringing hollow in the air. "No, don't listen to it." The voice echoed around him, a cacophony of warnings. "It's not him. He is another shadow, another lost soul." Jake stepped back, horror dawning upon him. The laughter returned, a chaotic symphony of glee. The shadows flared as the figure morphed and twisted, melding into a creature of pure anguish, eyes wide with torment. The once familiar features contorted into a grotesque mask of despair. "Help me, Jake!" it wailed. But then cracks of laughter split the air, drowning out Kyle's voice. "You can't save him. He has already claimed." The world around him spun. Panic flared, feeding on his doubts. He stumbled forward but fought against the will that pulled him back. "I need to know the next rule," he screamed, conviction pushing through his fear. The shadows responded with a violent rush, spiraling around him like a storm. He breathed in deep, choking on the weight of despair that filled the space. "What is it? What's the next rule?" "Only those consumed by darkness may reveal the truth," the echoing voices responded, a cruel taunt layered beneath their chilling tones. Jake's skin prickled. Had he ventured too far? What was the price for this knowledge? Would the abyss claim him next? A heavy silence fell, broken only by the sounds of his racing heartbeat. The eyes of the shadows bore into him, and he understood. The rules were warning him, but also tempting him to learn the cost. He had to act, but with each choice, the darkness grew bolder. Would he be able to escape? Jake's jaw clenched as he prepared to confront the twisted depths below. But just as he gathered the courage to plunge deeper, the shadows exploded, revealing a tunnel leading to even greater unknowns. Shadows shifting like waves. "Choose wisely," they hissed, as laughter turned savage once more. The veil between sanity and madness blurred around him. And in that moment, Jake wondered, had he truly become as lost as the souls that dwelled in these shadows? What awaited him in this terrifying descent? Would he finally unearth the truth or be consumed by the darkness? Jake's pulse quickened as he stared down the newly revealed tunnel. Each inch of the shadowy passage seemed to slither forward, inviting him deeper into its maw. The whispers, now a tempest, beckoned, promising revelations and truths hidden within this malevolent labyrinth. He hesitated. The shadows writhed against the walls, flickering light revealing ink-like tendrils reaching outward, as if yearning for his touch. Whatever lay ahead could either bind him further within their grasp or unlock the shackles of despair that bound him to this cursed place. "Only those consumed by darkness may reveal the truth," a voice echoed, eerily familiar, twisting around him as he tightened his grip on the worn wooden railing. What would it take to be a part of their world, to know the depths of despair they had known? He squared his shoulders, forcing his legs to move one step at a time. The further he ventured, the thicker the air became, suffocating him. Each inhalation a battle against despair. The corridor twisted and turned, like a snake, its belly filled with the remains of lost souls. The lantern flickered behind him, casting a last fading glow before plunging him into darkness. Then he heard it, a faint thudding, a heartbeat, a rhythmic sound that accompanied his own. It pulsated in his ears, a sinister drum beat pushing him deeper. No, it's not just a noise, he thought wildly. It's someone following. Panic clawed at the edges of his mind, but the laughter returned, sharper now, echoing down the tunnel, filling him with dread. "You're not alone, Jake." The echoes danced, swirling like smoke and casting chilling visions in his mind. Suddenly, a door, cracked slightly ajar, caught his eye. It beckoned with a soft glow, its edges glimmering as if illuminated by an unseen flame. Holding his breath, he approached, the thudding too synchronized with the mounting storm of his thoughts. He nudged the door open, revealing a dim room filled with scattered relics of a life long abandoned, dusty photographs, shattered glass, and an air of forgotten sorrow. He stepped inside, carefully avoiding the debris, his heart hammering louder. As he lingered, the thudding intensified, resonating with a deeper purpose. In the center, a beautifully warped mirror caught his attention. It bore a reflection not of him, but of a figure shrouded in shadow, clawing at the glass as if desperate to break free. "Kyle?" he whispered, voice trembling as the surface rippled. The tortured face twisted, desperately attempting to break through, horror tangled with recognition. Jake lunged back instinctively, panic flaring. The laughter shifted tone now. It was unhinged, a cacophony of despair as if every tortured soul joined in. Then, a voice rang clear amidst the chaos. "You have to choose, Jake." It echoed through the room, 1,000 whispers merging into one desperate plea. "The truth or your freedom." His breath caught in his throat. The realization crashed over him like ice water. To reveal the truth meant becoming part of the darkness. Would that mean surrendering his soul to save another? Or was it just another cruel trap designed to ensnare him forever? Jake's mind raced. He could not stand idle. Fear consumed him from within. He had to act. But as he turned to flee the room, the thudding amplified, transforming into a furious heartbeat matching a tidal wave of dread. The shadows grew restless, converging around him, their laughter mixing with his own rising panic. "Stay," they hissed, pulsating with a hypnotic cadence. "You can't escape the truth. It's calling, it's waiting." He spun back to the mirror. That face, was it Kyle? Or was it a ruse, a twisted reflection of his own fears? Would he dare reach for it, to challenge the dark that thrived on his doubt? With a chain of choices before him, Jake felt the room close in, consumed by shadows eager to devour him whole. What truth would he uncover? Would he step into that abyss, face to face with the darkness, or succumb to the chaos that threatened to swallow him whole? The echoes intertwined, pulling him under, like a whirlpool, and just as the darkness prepared to engulf him, Jake understood his moment was slipping away. "Choose!" The shadows shrieked as he lurched toward the mirror, heart pounding in rhythm with his fading sanity. Was he ready to confront the inescapable truth lurking just beyond the glass, or had the darkness already made its claim? Jake's hand trembled as he reached for the mirror, the surface vibrating like a taut drum, ready to burst. Images flashed: Kyle's laughter, the bond they had shared, now twisted into a nightmare. The shadows whispered promises and threats in unison, blurring the line between reality and despair. "Choose, Jake. You know the truth." It was a seductive voice, lurking just beneath familiar tones, taunting him. Panic twisted in his chest, tightening its grip. He couldn't flee. Not now. The choice loomed overhead like a storm cloud, dark and ominous, threatening to spill the secrets it harbored. He pressed his palm against the mirror, and the surface felt cold like winter's touch. The moment he did, it shimmered and rippled, morphing into a scene of chaos. Flickering images danced before him, a whirlwind of laughter and screams. Kyle's face among them, bright yet grimaced in pain. "You betrayed me, Jake." The reflection twisted, morphing into shadowy forms that loomed close. Their faces were familiar, yet foreign, and he felt their cries claw at his heart. The laughter transformed into wails, ringing louder and mingling with the thudding heartbeat echoing in his ears. "Let me out." The distorted faces pressed against the mirror's surface, desperate for a release. "You have to let us in." The weight of their anguish bore down heavily, almost unbearable. Jake staggered back, shaking his head violently, as if that could drive the haunting figures away. "No, I can't," he shouted, fear wrapping around his throat. "You're just illusions, tricks of the dark." But an unsettling voice cut through his defiance, sharper than the rest. "We're not illusions. We are the truth, and you know it." Jake stumbled, confusion gnawing at his insides. Was he really here to save Kyle? Or was he just feeding the shadows that thrived on his fear? There was no way back now. He felt trapped. The air felt electric, heavy, charged with despair and regret. Tendrils of darkness slithered near his feet, coiling around his ankles, trying to pull him toward the mirror again. The laughter rose to a deafening crescendo, drowning out reason, drowning out hope. "Join us, Jake. Reveal the truth." "No." It burst from him like an explosive gasp. The words shattered through the cacophony, standing firm against the encroaching tide of darkness. He knew he had to make a choice, and every moment passing felt like ash on his tongue. Summoning all his will, Jake lunged toward the mirror once more, driven by desperation. "I choose." The corridor trembled as a searing light erupted from the mirror, blinding him momentarily. Shadows shrieked, recoiling in rage. As the light dimmed, Jake found himself in a different room entirely. This space was vast, the walls lined with worn, tattered photographs, faces staring blankly at him, their eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Welcome back," a voice whispered, softer now, yet laced with cruelty. Heart in his throat, Jake pivoted. The photos depicted scenes from lives once lived, flashes of joy muddled with pain. Each frame seemed to tell a story of betrayal, of choices that led to ruin. There, front and center, was a photograph of him and Kyle, both smiling, frozen in time. But the joy felt eclipsed by a shadow hovering behind them, its features indistinct. Jake's breath hitched. What did it mean? "Do you see?" The voice purred, wrapping around him like a fog. "Every choice brings consequence. Can you live with this?" He caught his reflection in a cracked piece of glass, distorted and ragged. He was worn, hollowed by fear, torn between what he wanted and what he must confront. The heartbeat thundered again, shaking his resolve. "Will you empower the darkness to save yourself or stand against it?" Each word landed like a drop of acid, gouging at his mind. The shadows from the mirror pooled around him, dark tendrils reaching eagerly. Jake felt the terror mount within him, each second an unraveling thread of sanity. And as the walls began to close in, he faced the chilling truth. The darkness wasn't just around him. It was inside, festering, waiting for its time to strike. Jake swallowed hard. The decision loomed larger than life. Would he finally confront the darkness brewing inside him, or let it consume everything he held dear? "Choose wisely," the voice echoed, laughter rising as if it was the final jingle of a twisted tune. With barely a moment to decide, Jake prepared for a leap that could change everything. Time and fate merged into a single moment that might break him or set him free. What horrors awaited if he chose wrong? The darkness pulsed with energy, thrumming like a living beast as Jake stood firmly rooted in that room of secrets. The laughter echoed like a distant memory, taunting him, each peal a reminder of his past sins and deepest fears. With every heartbeat, the stakes elevated. He felt their weight bearing down on him, as if the walls were closing in, intent on crushing his very soul. "Choose wisely," the voice whispered, oozing with malice, as shadows lurked hungrily at the peripheries of his vision. Every temptation was laid bare, bent on breaking him apart. Jake felt his resolve hardening. "No more running," he murmured to himself. The moment of truth was upon him. It was now or never. What did it mean to confront the darkness within? Could he stop it from spilling into the world? He locked eyes with the photograph of Kyle, a bright smile frozen in time, and steeled himself against the tide of emotion that threatened to drown him. "I'm coming for you," he said silently, drawing strength from the very memories the darkness wanted to twist against him. The embrace of despair shuddered, shrieking in protest. With an earth-shattering roar, he hurled himself forward into the fray, a visceral manifestation of pure determination. The shadows whipped around him, reaching desperately as he faced the mirror once more. "I choose the truth," he declared, voice steady, unfaltering. In that heartbeat, as he crashed into the mirror's surface, reality exploded in a kaleidoscope of light and sound. The abyss swallowed him whole for one horrendous moment, visions expanding and warping as the laughter turned into wails of agony. He landed abruptly on the other side, awash in blinding light. Around him, memories swirled like a tempest. Faces of the girls who had vanished, the pain etched into their features, flickering with desperation. They were not just shadows. They were a part of a greater story, an unfinished tale begging for resolution. The room settled into focus, dusty and forlorn but starkly illuminated. At the center, a small, weathered table stood with 7 battered cards laid splayed on its surface. Each one bore a rule, but now, the truth behind every instruction glowed with new clarity. Rule 1. Never ignore the signs. That whisper was softer now, filled with warmth, guiding him towards understanding rather than fear. Jake picked up the first card. Rule 2. Always turn back when you hear the laughter. He remembered those chilling echoes that haunted him, realizing they had been twisted truths crying out to hold him back from sorrow. With renewed determination, he glanced at the others, feeling their gravity permeating his senses. Rule 3. Don't trust the darkness. A cry rose within him, a rallying of everything he had learned and lost. He flipped to the next card. Rule 4. Help the lost. Jake's heart tightened, visions of the girls flooding back into his memory. They needed him, their stories woven tightly with his. Rule 5. Must face your past. His breath hitched, realization dawning. His journey had not been just about unearthing forgotten tales. It was about confronting his demons, recognizing where he faltered. Rule 6. Accept what you cannot change. Crawling into his chest, pain mingled with release, he had to forgive himself for choices made under fear. Finally, he reached for Rule 7. But before he could flip the card, shadows surged around him, a chorus of anguished screams filling the air. They beckoned, clawing at him, a desperate plea for salvation echoing within the depths of despair. Find the lost souls, every choice matters. With every ounce of courage, Jake turned the last card over. It glowed, illuminating the entire room. Rule 7. Love is the anchor. The words struck him like lightning, an awareness unfurling inside, radiant and consuming. Love was the force tethering him to reality, nurtured in friendship, courage, and the longing for connection. As if summoned, Kyle's specter appeared within the faint light, his expression a mix of sadness and pride. Jake, you found the truth, he said softly, a soothing cadence cutting through the turmoil. Jake stepped closer, desperation flooding his veins. I'm so sorry for everything, I will always fight for you. The darkness wavered, seemingly fraying at the seams. The anguished faces of the lost girls flickered, morphing from torment to something gentler. They hovered at the edge, hope draping them in a soft glow. Together, he shouted, raising his hands, love surging within. Let us find peace. I'm not afraid any longer. The shadows recoiled like the tide, and a blaring light exploded forth. Jake felt warmth wrapping around him, washing over him like a protective wave. Kyle smiled faintly as the other figures moved toward the circle of light. That's it, Kyle encouraged, stepping forward, his spirit flickering like a candle but steady in the glow. Let them know they're not alone. The laughter transformed, softening into cheers, joyous and liberating. The dark figures became radiant as they stepped into the light, and the pain etched upon their faces dissolved entirely. Jake felt a tremor beneath his feet. You are not lost. You are found. We are all connected through love. His voice soared, resonating with the new energy pulsating in the air. The dark walls of the gas station began to disintegrate, fading into the brilliance illuminating their space. Shadows shook free like dust shaken from a rug. One by one, faces of the lost emerged, their expressions transforming, morphing from despair to relief. They needed him, and he had finally answered their call, pulling them away from their suffering. As the blinding light enveloped him, Jake felt himself lifted, released from the chains that had bound his existence for so long. The gas station crumbled into dust behind him, the weight of its haunting presence dissipating like smoke in the dawn. Jake stood bathed in warmth, a comforting embrace welcoming him back to the real world. And then he spotted it. The gas station stood tall in its place, but it shimmered with new life, like a sun breaking through dark clouds after a storm. He took a deep breath, knowing the truth. With love in his heart, he had conquered the darkness, not just for himself, but for all those who had been lost. He would never forget the lessons learned, nor would he await fate to intervene. The people mattered. Their stories mattered. He could keep both the past and future alive with every moment of connection. And as he stepped outside, The world pulsed with the promise of hope. Jake walked forward into the brightness, a small smile creeping onto his face. At last, he was free. And as the sun rose over the horizon, shining brightly over the reborn gas station, he couldn't help but feel an exhilarating rush of life, ready for whatever came next. And always never to forget the lessons learned. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and support your favorite content. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this jaw-dropping ending. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans understand how critical your support is to keep the channel alive.